Hello and welcome once again to Straight Bat, my weekly video blog where, as the title suggests, I comment with a straight bat. This week we're looking at another contentious issue. What matters more, faith or COVID? That's right, a few days ago, a well-known politician sent me a WhatsApp message. Rajdeep, are you seeing the pictures of the Kumbh Mela in Haridwar? No masks, no social distancing, lakhs of people gathered. I mean, it's insane what's going on. I promptly replied in agreement and asked the Neta, why don't you come on my show and speak out? The politician replied with a smiley image and said, I'd love to, but you know how it is. I felt like replying, no, I don't know how it is. But actually, I do know how it is. When it comes, my friends, to a religious festival like the Kumbh Mela, no mainstream politician will speak out against the festival for not observing COVID protocols. After all, the Kumbh is one of the great Hindu religious congregations, and which government in this day and age will be seen to challenge Hindu culture and traditions, even if there is a public health emergency in the country? There is, after all, an election to be won next year in Uttarakhand and UP, and the Sadhu Samaj and their followers could be a key vote bank. Now contrast the ambiguity shown by our public representatives to the Kumbh issue with the manner in which last year during the lockdown, a Tablighi Jamaat congregation at the Nizamuddin Markaz in the national capital was targeted by ruling party politicians, the police, civil society, and the media, and accused as the super spreader. This is a criminal act, not negligence. These people are terrorists. That's a quote of one minister. This is a corona jihad against the nation was a hashtag that trended for days on social media. The Delhi police rounded up many of the Tablighi activists. FIRs were filed, people were jailed. The Nizamuddin Markaz, where the crowd had gathered, was closed down. And yes, primetime TV had a field day in demonizing an entire community in such a vicious manner that it eventually and actually led to attacks and boycotts of Muslim vegetable vendors during the lockdown. It was almost as if a single community gathering was to be held responsible for the spread of corona cases across the country. It required 3 high courts to eventually call the penal action against the Tablighis as unjust and unlawful. Today, the media, with a few exceptions, is mostly silent though on the issue of the crowds that have gathered at the Kumbh. The politicians in particular are maintaining a radio silence, as are the hyperventilating nationalistic anchors for whom the Tablighis were national enemy number 1 last year. And the same police which was busy filing FIRs and arresting Tablighi activists is now providing VVIP security to the Sadhu Sant Samaj leadership. So I ask the question, my friends, today, why is the Kumbh Mela getting special treatment at a time of curfews and a public health emergency in the country? Why is it that no government, no court, no law enforcement agency will step in and say, sorry, this year the Mela will have to be suspended and postponed? Just look at the irony of it. You can lock down cities, put thousands of street vendors out of income and business, close down small businesses. You can postpone and cancel exams affecting lakhs of students, stop large marriage functions, penalize any offenders of the curfew rules, even if I'm sitting in a car, but you won't dare touch a religious festival. We are told that the Kumbh is a great tradition of our country and therefore deserves special treatment. Of course, the Kumbh is a great tradition. In fact, personally, I went and attended 2 Maha Kumbhs in Allahabad, and I was struck by the sheer energy of the crowds that had assembled by the river. And yet, my friends, despite the fact that the Kumbh represents Hinduism in all its glorious diversity, the plain truth is this: faith cannot be above the law. not when there is an unprecedented health crisis facing the country, frankly, not at any time at all, and certainly not when doctors are being overburdened and the health infrastructure is being stretched to the limit. This isn't just about Hinduism either. Let's get that very clear. Far from it. Every, and I repeat, every religious gathering of this nature, be it the Kumbh or Ramzan or Christmas celebrations, must necessarily be truncated or suspended in Corona times. Faith and tradition, my friends, are important, but of far greater importance is the health and human lives. If the Hajj could be cancelled last year, why can't the Kumbh be touched? Let's get this clear again. The Tablighi Jamaat congregation during a lockdown last year was an example of civic irresponsibility shown by the Nizamuddin Markaz. It should have never been given permission in the first place by the Delhi government authorities. The same applies to the Kumbh. You cannot discriminate against one religious grouping during a lockdown and then give state sponsorship to another. A constitutional state would stand by the rule of law and act against all, irrespective of community. It's a majoritarian state that gives preferential treatment to the more populous community. But let me put another inconvenient truth before you. We have moved, my friends, from minority appeasement to an age of clear and blatant majority appeasement, where a man with a beard and a cap will be demonized and ostracized, but a saffron-robed sadhu has a license to violate masking and social distancing norms with bizarre excuses being offered. We've already seen this year how politicians carry on merrily with their large election rallies and roadshows despite being fully aware that these are in violation of COVID protocols and potential super spreaders. And yet these same netas will give us sermons on do gas ki duri. Well, to my netas I say, why don't you follow the rules? And if you don't follow the rules or apply them selectively, you lose the moral right to lecture to our citizens. Then whether we are farmer protesters, whether we are migrant labor, or indeed the Aam Aadmi. The farm protesters, be clear, did not seek state support for their protests. The Kumbh Mela is taking place with full state support. The Kumbh celebrates life and humanity. It is meant to wash away our sins by taking a dip in the holy waters. But I ask this again, what is holy about a pandemic that kills thousands? A WhatsApp message I received says it all, and let me read it out to you. Millions are roaming around without a mask at the Kumbh, and it is considered devotion. Thousands attending political rallies amidst a pandemic is called nationalism. And sitting alone in my own car without a mask is a crime. Jai Hind. As a postscript, let me tell you that with no senior politician willing to come and speak out on the Kumbh issue, my guest that night on TV was the Director General of Police of Uttarakhand, Mr. Ashok Kumar. And he tried bravely to defend the indefensible by saying that the police were trying their best to ensure that COVID norms were being observed by the crowds, and his data showed that the virus was under control. Now just think about it. 30 lakh people, according to some estimates, took the Shahi Snan this week in Haridwar. Do you really expect the police to monitor each of these people, test them and track them? Are we then surprised at all that COVID cases are now rising in Uttarakhand as well? On one day, 20,000 people tested, more than 1,000 of them were tested positive. About a 5% positive test rate, which should clearly worry most rational people. And yet the Chief Minister of Uttarakhand, the same worthy gent who had a problem with women wearing ripped jeans, lauds the large assembled crowds and says there is nothing to worry since the Kumbh is taking place by the banks of the holy river. Sometimes when I hear the comments of our politicians, I really wonder, are we living in a banana republic? Think about it. That was the Straight Bat. And do subscribe to my YouTube channel for more such videos. Namaskar.